Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where we talk all things Commander. And this week, we're talking March of the Machine and March of the Machine Commander, and all the cards we're excited to play about, to play and try and test out. So they may not be the most powerful cards, or maybe they will be, but we're going to talk about some of the cards we're hyped to play. So joining me today is Budget Commander Tomer. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I love talking about new cards. This is going to be a blast to go through.
Well, thank goodness Wizards gave us many, many new cards, so you'll be happy for a long time. Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive. How are you doing?
I am doing great, too. This set looks super sweet.
And from Germany, we got Phil with Daylight Outside. How are you doing, Phil? Brewer's Kitchen.
Yes, very nice. I'm so excited for this set. It looks... I'm hyped for every set, but again, for this one as well, looks pretty good.
All right, before we get into March of the Machine, make sure you like, follow, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, etc. And also, today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit, the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. Card Conduit lets you skip all the typing and time and work associated with buy listing. Their curated service lets you send in as many cards as you want with buy list value 1 or more, and you'll pay just a 5% service fee. And you can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards and pay only 2%. You get a detailed report and fast payment once your order is processed, and you can get 10% off by using our code MTGGoldfish at cardconduit.com/MTGGoldfish. Thank you, Card Conduit, for supporting today's show. And I've used Card Conduit, and they are fast. And they're
Is that
cheap,
new?
actually.
Did we just get sponsored?
Oh, yeah, Card Conduit. The easiest way to sell your Magic cards is now sponsoring our show. So thank you to Card Conduit.
Bada beans. That's great.
Now, back to March of the Machine. We have handpicked 12 cards that we are excited about. So Seth, do you want to kick us off with the card you are excited about from March of the Machine?
I had to go for the most March of the Machine-y card. In March of the Machines, the whole deal is battles. That's the new card type. That's what everyone's hyped about. And Wizards gave us the perfect card for a 5-color battle deck, or just a 5-color deck with battles, and Begin the Invasion, which is one of each color in X, sorcery, tutor X battles with different names, put them on the battlefield, and then shuffle. So essentially, if you pay 6 mana, you get a battle. 7 mana, you get 2 battles. If you pay 10 mana, you get 5 battles. This card is probably one of my favorite cards from the set. I think this card is yes, you gotta play battles to make it good, which I think is fine, because if you look at battles, a lot of them have pretty powerful ETBs. There's removal, there's creature production, there's graveyard recursion, card draw, pretty much anything you could want. You can find that effect on a battle, and the rate on this is pretty good. A lot of battles are 4 mana, 5 mana, 6 mana. So you're really not paying a meaningful tax on this. If you're casting this X2 or X3, you're getting more mana worth of battles than you're spending on Begin the Invasion, and you get all this selection where if you need a Wrath, you snag the Wrath battle. If you're in good shape, you grab some card draw or battles that make creatures. So I think Begin the Invasion is one of the cards I'm most excited to cast from this side. Just put a bunch of battles on the battlefield and see what happens.
Who's the battle commander?
That's actually a very good question. So I would guess it's just a generic 5-color good stuff commander. There's not really we don't have a legend that specifically works with battles, right? That there's not anything that says battles on it. Battles aren't enchantments, so enchantressy stuff doesn't work. So I guess you just play Joda, Kenrith, Azika.
So I have a budget commander coming out relatively soon trying to tackle this, and it was kind of difficult, but for me at least, what I'm going for is Ramos Dragon Engine, because Ramos is this 5-color commander, and you could remove 5. You got to put a +1/+1 counter on it for each time you cast a spell that has a different color mana across. So if you cast a red spell, you put 1 counter on it. If you cast a 5-color spell, you put 5 counters on it. And you can remove 5 counters on it to add double Wooburg. So 2 red, 2 white, 2 black, 2 green, 2 whatever. So you make 10 mana, double Wooburg. So you could immediately just cast Begin the Invasion for X = 5. So that seems good. The only difficulty that I found is there's a lot of battles are very specific to certain archetypes. Like, so putting them all together seems like there's a lot that are kind of generic. There's one that's like destroy all legendary creatures and non-legendary creatures, or like make some tokens. You know, those are good in a generic sense. But then a lot of them are just like reveal dragons from your hand, and you're like, so it will be interesting. I feel like this is a card that's going to get more and more powerful as we get more battles. Like, I think it's going to be well received, and we're going to get more battles in the future. And this card's stonks will just keep going up.
What's the best outcome? Like, let's say you get 3 battles, you wipe the board first of all. I think that's the easy one.
Wipe the board.
What else do you do?
I mean, I guess it depends on the exact situation, but something like wipe the board with Invasion of Fiora. Maybe Cascade with Invasion of Alara. You get a free permanent and you get to draw a card. If your graveyard's full, Invasion of Chandelar, recurring 3 permanents from your graveyard is actually pretty powerful. So those are kind of the 3 that would stand out to me the most. You could also just get ones that make random dorky creatures. The creature producing ones, Invasion of Phyrexia is probably the best, but you need to be able to pay mana for it, so it doesn't really work with tutoring it to the battlefield. But there are some that just like put a 2/2 night token on the battlefield or whatever, so you could get some like recursion. I think another sneaky way to play it is there is one, it's the red uncommon one that deals 4 damage to a battle or opponent. You can set up like the insta battle flip by getting that one
Invasion
to deal
of Regatha.
Yeah.
If you're watching this on the video, I'll have more things.
So you could like get that and get Invasion of Chandelar, get 3 permanents back from your graveyard with Invasion of Chandelar, and then use the damage from Invasion of Regatha to flip Invasion of Chandelar into Leyline Surge, which is an enchantment that lets you put a permanent into play from your hand for free on your upkeep. So I think that's another sneaky one to add to the pile, because you can immediately flip one of your more powerful battles.
I think I'll have to consult you when I build my deck.
This sounds like a nightmare to build and play, because you need to balance the ability to flip these things. Like, you maybe play Hex Parasite or creatures or things like that. You need to know what to tutor for, and then as you tutor, you need to read both sides of every card. Imagine if you had to read all 20 of your invasions, and you need to read the backside too, and then sequence it correctly such that they flip and do whatever they're supposed to do. Good luck, new players at the table.
I have one more question for you guys. So we've been talking about like a dedicated battle deck. Is there any merit to playing this in just a generic 5-color good stuff deck with like 4 or 5 of the best battles? Like, have this be, I'm going to tutor out a Wrath, the recur 3 from my graveyard, tutor up an instant or sorcery. Like, is there any merit to playing it outside of a full-on battle tribal deck with a small battle package? Because this just seems so efficient. Like, 10 mana get 5 battles, you're probably getting 25 mana worth of battles on the battlefield or something for 10 mana. That's like a ridiculous ramp spell. What do you think? Is there any chance we play this outside of a dedicated battle deck?
It's kind of like the question of like, do you want to play Sunforger if you only have like 4 or 5 instants and sorcerer or instants in your deck that Sunforger can target them? I think maybe like if your deck can make a lot of mana, because you'll need a lot of mana you need at least like 6 mana for this to even cast a spell. So it is a lot. And you might accidentally draw like 1 or 2 of your battles. So I think you want like at least 5, probably more than that. So it could be. And I do think like battles, I would be very surprised if they went into Lord of the Rings, for example, which is coming out in the summertime, if we don't get like, the battle for Helm's Deep or something, So I'm sure as we got more and more just powerful battles that you want to be playing anyway, that this card, like just jamming it with just a couple battles is going to make a lot of sense.
And
there's got to be a 2 or 3 card win in here. Otherwise, it's like 10 mana to like get some value. Like, is that really what you're trying to do? Like, you could probably win the game with like any other card, right? So this has to be something like you can pull 2 battles out that like combo together to end the game, which I don't think we currently have, but maybe with newer battles we can actually get there.
Definitely something to keep an eye on for the future, and it's just like worth reiterating. It puts them on the battlefield, unlike like Oh no, what's that tutor that I always cast from Alara and then you all kill me where you get a card of each color?
Conflux.
Yeah, Conflux.
Yes.
Like, unlike something like Conflux, you
more of like a bring to
actually
light.
get to put it on the battlefield right away. And if you want more on battles, we've been planning out future podcasts, and I think we're going to do an entire Battles in Commander podcast. So keep an eye out for that in the future.
I will also add, I think this is my favorite art from this set. Like, the art piece on this one is very cool because it's showing New Phyrexia, the Realmbreaker, like, invading every single plane. So each part of the prism, the color prism, is a different world being invaded by this, realm. Which is it's just really cool. It's a really cool way of telling the story, but also it's just a very inspiring piece. So, good job. I don't know who did it.
I didn't
Strangely
even...
enough, this is not a story spotlight card.
Campbell White is the artist on that one, and I didn't even realize it. But the full res art is on the internet if you want to see it, and it looks really sweet.
All right, so I see you're tutoring for value, Seth, and I'll give you an actual good tutor.
Oh,
Hoarding Broodlord. 5 black. So 8 mana value. It's a 7/6. It's a dragon. It has Convoke. Flying. When Hoarding Broodlord enters the battlefield, search your library for a card, exile it face down, then shuffle. For as long as that card remains exiled, you may play it. Spells you cast from exile have Convoke. Isn't this card, like, insane?
I think so, yeah.
It works well with Prosper.
It does. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm so tired of the Worldsoul Prosper thing. It's like such a meme at this point.
this is like the 2023 edition of Runescar Demon, right? Like
It's-
like
yeah. It's-
they took
so it's one more
Runescar
than
and they
Runescar
convoke
Demon.
it and
Yeah, but
give
you
you
can
all these
convoke
extra
it.
upsides.
And you
can't
can
get
cast it for
Thoughtseized.
cheaper.
Right? The card sits outside. No one can see it. No one knows what it does. And the card itself has Convoke.
Yeah,
So
it's
you
a better
can really
runes
get
card.
people.
I think
card-
I
that's
think
really
it's like if you just have a cup, if you're like a creature deck, if you're just a creature deck, I think this card is already quite good. If you're obviously Exile Matters, it's very good. And then if you're like a go wide style deck, like I know this is kind of blasphemy, but like we covered zombies recently, and zombies are really good at flooding the board with creatures tokens. So like that seems it's not a drag, it's not a zombie, but
It's okay.
You know,
This counts as your tutor slot, Tomer. This is
Yeah,
not
it's a tutor
creature
slot.
Just
This
ignore
card
the
is
dragon
really
aspect of it.
this card is really
funny
good.
enough,
and
so
then-
zombies, a lot of them come into the battlefield tapped, so you can't use them to
Yeah,
control
but persist
immediately,
or
but-
what's it called? Not the persist. Decayed. Decayed zombies
yeah.
Yeah.
enter the battlefield untapped. So Wilhelt and Jadar. I know Phil. You're looking to build Jadar. Would you
I
run this
already
in your
did.
build?
Already did. And I thought about including it, but in Jadar you usually have only one disposable zombie that you sacrifice every turn. Just as a good stuff card, though. It is an ETB, right? So if you flicker it or reanimate it, it will continuously trigger save from Thoughtseize if Prim is on the table, and why would you do this? But
you
it
can
is
wheel.
an upside.
Like,
you
there
could
are
get
actual
wheels
use
or
cases
something.
for
Yeah,
this,
it
right?
is.
You can wheel yourself.
It is an actual upside that is exiled, and just without the it is expensive without Convoke, but
Is it though?
Not too
It's
much.
a lot
for
of
just
mana,
for
Runescar
a
Demon.
straight up tutor.
Nobody plays Runescar Demon.
Runescar is
Do
kind
people
of
not play
like
Runescar Demon anymore? Let me check the
played
EDH rec
yeah.
stats here. Is
I was
Runescar
just
Demon
looking.
Blue for
It's
Magic?
it's like
Dragon is
3%
better,
or
though.
4%. It's definitely fallen
Yeah.
from where it was like a
That's
decade
pretty
ago.
high.
It's also just a good reanimate target. Like that's another
Yeah.
way to cheat on the mana. So if you either you're convoking it or you're reanimating it. Like Scion of the Ur Dragon is basically Dragon Reanimator. So you could like just dump this into the graveyard with Scion and then use a reanimation spell to get it back. So like,
It's
there's a
also-
lot of synergy potential with this deck. With this
It's
card.
also sweet that you get to convoke the cards from exile, so that we're like you're ramping out that card, and there's like Invasion of Keldheim, one of the new battles that like
Yeah.
wheels yourself and you exile the cards, but you can cast those cards until the next turn. So you get some extra synergy there. I'm wondering though, like, say you're playing zombies, like, do you play this over the other options? Like,
I
or
think
like
I
some
put,
sort
like-
of go wide deck?
What-
Is
what are
this
the
the
other
best
options?
tutor? Demonic tutor,
the other
vampiric
options.
tutor.
Sidisi. I like Sidisi on Dead Vizier a lot. Because you like exploit a token and it's 5.
So you go demonic, vampiric, and then you get into this territory.
So this is like the next tier.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm playing a zombie deck, I'm not running like Vampiric Tutor because that makes me sad, but...
So you're running a demon?
Hoarding, yeah, hoarding a dragon. It's a dragon. I know, I'm a hypocrite, all right? Fight me.
Yeah, like
it's
my
probably
tutor, but that's something else as well. Like, just a straight-up tutor is kind of boring, but if you say, I just played this big dragon, and turns out I get my best card for the situation, and I can cheat it out.
Yeah.
Ooh, that is pretty good. Maybe it feels a little too generic for my, like, I don't know if I will play it regularly, but as soon as I'm in Dragons or Exile Matters or Convoke, whatever, I think about including this card because, my god, the tutor effect is
this works with Foretell, right? Or
yes.
No?
Oh,
yes.
Wait. Is Foretell an ability
so
or
spells you cast
cost?
from Exile have Convoke, but when you cast a Foretell spell from Exile, you use its Foretell cost, so you can Convoke that.
It is in the Exile zone, so you're casting it from Exile.
I assume so. Yeah, I assume it should let you convoke the cards that you foretell, that's actually a cool. There's a lot of synergies for this card.
There's like some actual like playable foretell cards that
Dream
people
Devour
play.
is a fun one. That's also Prosper. Everything's Prosper.
Everything's Prosper. We needed to give Prosper more synergies.
Look, I love Prosper. I'm sorry if I'm giving you a hard time. It's very popular, so I see a lot of Prosper.
All right, Tomer, what do you have for us?
All right, I have a whole bunch that I'm excited for, and spoiler alert, they're all card draw. But the one that I'm personally the most excited for, and I think might go under the radar. Actually, it's not the most powerful one, but I think it's like low key very strong. And this is Firemane Commando. It's a 4-mana white 4/3 Angel Soldier with flying. Whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, you draw a card. And whenever another player attacks with 2 or more creatures, they draw a card if none of those creatures attacked you. So 4 mana, 4/3. It's very easy for you to draw a card on your turn, even the turn it comes out, because even if it doesn't have haste, if you have 2 other creatures that are attacking, you're going to be drawing a card each turn. So it's basically like a Phyrexian arena for you that you actually have to jump through a hoop to get the value out of, but also it's a 4/3 flyer too. And then the downside or the group hugginess is that you're actually going to be benefiting your opponents if they're going to be attacking. But I think of this as actually like a huge upside, especially for someone like me who, is usually getting attacked a lot as a go-to person. Phil, this is a good Phil card, I think, too. Phil gets attacked a lot, too. You're giving a very big incentive for your opponents to not attack you. You're actually giving a very big opponents for your opponents to lower each other's life total for your value. So yes, you're drawing them a card, but you're also making them each like take 4 damage a turn, possibly more. It's in order to do that. It's very much like the curse cycle, except you're not cursing one unlucky individual. Everybody's allowed to punch each other in the face as long as they're not hitting you, which is great. So I'm super excited for it. I think it's low-key very powerful.
I thought you hated Phyrexian Arena. I'm so confused.
I like a Phyrexian Arena that makes opponents punch themselves in the face.
I will say, we've talked about this before, but it doesn't take that much incentive to get people not to attack you. So I think this really will do a good job of redirecting damage towards your opponents and away from you. So I really like that aspect of it. And then the card draw mode is like, I feel like it's worded pretty safely compared to some of the commander card draw we get where like it triples up if you attack each opponent or something. There's like not really a way to break this, right? Like you attack
it's
with
like,
2 or more creatures, even if you attack 2 at Richard, 2 at me, 2 at Phil, you only draw a single card, right? Yeah.
I think the only thing that I could think of is like if you have any sort of like trigger doubling effect like Ishin or Strionic Resonator, then you could get 2 cards out of it. But for the most part, it's pretty restrictive into 1 card.
Ishin will double up for the opponent as well if it's your permanent. Yes. So keep that in mind.
Even more incentive.
I guess.
I also like that like you otherwise sometimes you just don't want to attack, but this gives people more incentive to punch each other in the face.
Keeps the game going. Yeah, and giving them cards to keep the snowball going. Yeah. Would you play this outside of decks with its creature types mattering, outside of like angels and soldiers? Would you just play this in a generic like go wide white deck with a bunch of creatures?
If I'm playing a creature deck, I'm running this, I think.
Interesting. I totally overlooked it. I didn't know this was a card until you brought it up, honestly. This is the first time hearing of it.
Mine. No, let's say Howling
I
Mine.
wanted that.
It's like pinged all your opponents for like 1 damage every turn or something.
1 damage? You're attacking with at least 2 creatures.
But it's a Howling Mine that's also theoretically saving you like 10 life a turn or like some reasonable number of life a turn because that damage isn't going at you. In theory,
and you draw the card first too, ideally, because it could trigger on your turn the turn we cast it.
I would try it, but I don't know if I consider it. I don't know.
Richard, your spirited companion can now draw you another card.
Yeah, it sounds like
cool
a Richard
and all,
card.
but but we're like howling mining everyone, right? Like that's the other problem.
It's a little group huggy.
Like I feel they just draw enough cards and then like one shot. Like say there's a very scary player at the table, right? They have like a 10-10 trample. And you're like, oh, play this, and like they won't attack me, but they'll just draw more cards and then one shot you. Like you're not really safe from this, right? Like, would you really feel safe if they had like a 20-20 trample and you're like, oh, I'll play this down, and they'll clearly hit set to draw a card. They can just turn around and kill you whenever they feel like it, right? So
I don't think this is the end all
this
be
like
all.
a little deterrence, but it's not foolproof deterrence, right?
I think it's
for some people.
I think it's good deterrence in the like mid game, but once it gets to the late game and people have big creatures and people are going to die, then I think the deterrence kind of fades away. But in the mid game, when you play this and everyone's got like some random mana dorks or solemn simulacrums, like those are going to be attacking the someone else, so you can draw cards, like rather than going at you. So I think in the mid game, it's actually pretty decent deterrence.
Yeah. This is like Faerie Arena, but like a lot more work.
No, it's White Edric.
White
People don't realize it.
No, it's not White.
It's like the Scooby-Doo moment where you like take off the real person was bleh, it was Edric all along. I love it.
All right, Phil, what do you have for us?
I have a card that is probably very fun. I'm not sure how strong it is. I guess it turns out what you target with it. It is C-Double, 4 mana, instant. This spell can't be countered. That sucks to read, but otherwise it would be too easy. Choose one. If an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, you may choose both, and then you copy target spell. You may choose a new target for the copy. A copy of a permanent becomes a token, or create a token that's a copy of target creature. This spell can't be copied.
This spell can't be copied, right?
Yeah,
it
can't be copied.
It
Not
can't
can be
loop
countered.
itself. Yeah,
it would be
no
too
dual
easy to
caster
loop
loops for
it would be
my friends.
Just
It would just go
trivial to
infinite
go
with
infinite.
any other spell copying effect, right?
Yeah.
Like
as soon as you have
yeah.
this. So what I'm thinking, I'm not sure if I'm actually sure it is not that strong, but it seems insanely fun and flexible. So I like copying everything. I wish I could copy this, but I can't. The cool part is copy target spell means any spell that is on the stack, you can say, oh, I want this too. And also, if you want to go off and somebody counters your go off spell, you can copy the counter and pretty much redirect it. So, I'm not sure if I ever get to use this double mode, but I kind of want to try it in Manu's Karga. It makes a token. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I copy a permanent spell, it doesn't create a token rules-wise, right? It just becomes a token.
Yeah, so it won't. Yeah, doubling season or anointed procession won't give you extras or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I thought about Manu's Karga said whenever you create a token.
Oh, yeah. I assume it's the same issue, which is so counterintuitive. But yeah,
you can still create a token of any creature on the battlefield. So I will just play this guy. I did the same with Green Sun's Twilight. It says, hey, create a token, so it fits the deck. And I think this card is just super flexible and will lead to probably some rules questions and to some interesting plays that you usually don't see. And I love that. So I hope I can keep up 4 mana, but it seems worth it. And the floor of this is the best creature on the battlefield or the best spell on the stack in a turn
Instance
cycle.
being clone. Like, you don't even need to keep the money. Like, I skipped over this card at the beginning because I thought, oh, like, if I don't have 4 mana up, this doesn't do anything. So I don't want to play draw go all the time. Like, I'm not Grim. But the floor is it's an instant spin clone for 4 mana. So that's not bad. And it has clone synergy, and I think it's going to be really good in like Anawan rogue decks because those mill and those usually play at flash speed too.
Ooh, yeah.
So
if you get the
I think Krim's going to love this card. I think he would probably enjoy this card a lot.
Isn't this card just good? Like, isn't like I feel like Phil might be underselling it. Like, I don't know, 8 cards in the graveyard in Commander doesn't seem like that difficult for one opponent. You only need one opponent to have it, then 4 mana clone at instant speed is already fine. Plus, you get the upside of winning a counter war, copying something on the stack, maybe doing both. I don't know. I'm almost like wondering if this could be staple-y. Like, I feel like you could just play this in any blue deck. I don't know. I really like Mythos of Aluna, which really suffers from color identity issues in Commander because of its like Temur mana that's thrown on there for no reason. But every time I play that card, I end up feeling like, wow, that really overperformed and did a lot more than I expected it to do. I feel like this gives you a lot of that same vibe, except it has a lot of upside and you can play in way more decks because you don't have the Temur mana issue.
Yeah, it feels a bit
this
like...
card's insane, right?
Oh,
yeah, I kind of think the card's really good.
So you don't have to play draw. Like, you can just copy your own stuff. You can ponder, see double, like if you want, right? And copy a creature,
5 mana
double
extra
ponder.
No, but
I mean, that's like
blatant
that's like
thievery,
the
though.
I don't want to play Drago, and then
Yeah.
if someone rips like a big X spell or something, you can just copy it. You can copy the best creature. This is a spell, so you can also like replay it. I don't know.
It doesn't exile itself. Yeah,
Krim,
pretty good.
Krim
It doesn't like you can loop it, right? Like stuff like that.
just not by copying it. I first
not by
stopped
copying
reading
it.
the card when I saw this. I like this spell can't be copied. Well, then I don't like it. But then I read the rest of the card and thought,
It's
makes
only
sense.
like I feel like they didn't give you a tax for any of this, right? It's like 4 mana and like the 4 mana create a token of a creature. Like what is that card? Is there any card that does it? It's like 3 mana is probably the best you'd ever get on that rate. Maybe.
3.
I feel like there has to be something,
There's gotta
maybe
be
a
something.
Simic thing.
There's 3 mana,
we know-
3 mana ones.
There's double major is like 2 mana, but it only hits your own creatures and it only copies on the stack.
Yeah,
So you have a
spells.
big timing
that sounds about
restriction.
right.
So I feel like it's fairly costed, especially with all the upside. I don't know. I think I'm just gonna, if I have blue mana, I'm just for the immediate future, I'm just gonna toss this in my deck and see. Maybe I end up cutting it in the long run, but I kind of feel like this card might actually be really strong.
I think for my decks, I'm going to definitely put it into my Brutaclad Mech Titan Cauldron deck because it's just really good
Backup
to.
Cauldron.
Well, of course you have to have Cauldron just in case things go south. But like being able to like end of my opponent's turn, copy something that has a very good attack trigger, something that's super threatening, then play Brutaclad on my turn, make all my tokens a copy of that cool token, and then I swing for a bajillion and win the game off that. That seems super fun to me. So like tokens matters is going to be really interesting to me, especially if you go like populate or no, what's the one that it's populate, right? Where you can copy a token.
Yeah.
So you can make a token
Creature
of a really
token.
big thing, and then you can start, if you're in a populate deck, then you can start like copying the token that you just made of the really big thing, which is really cool.
Or
How
a
fun if you
small
like
thing
C
that
double
originally.
Cess Panharmonicon and then Brutaclad it. You have like 30 Panharmonicons.
Oh, actually,
It's like a ball drifter.
Mill decks
Mill
too.
yourself out, and that's it.
sounds like my dream game of Commander, actually.
I'm gonna ask him if he's gonna run it, and I'll put if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll put his comments on the screen as well.
All right,
You know he's
Seth,
gonna run
what do you have for us?
Well, speaking of cards Krim's gonna run, when Krim told me I can't come to the cast, I'm sick, he said someone has to mention this card. He likes it for the wrong reasons, very wrong reasons, but I said, no worry, Krim, I already got it on my list, and that is Realmbreaker the Invasion Tree, which I think this card's sweet and also like one of the best cards in the set. So it's a 3-mana legendary artifact. You can pay 2, make target opponent mill 3, then you get to put a land card from their graveyard onto the battlefield tapped under your control. The land, if it ever leaves the battlefield, it goes to exile, and then you can pay 10, tap it, sacrifice it, insert your library for any number of Praetor cards, put them on the battlefield, and then shuffle. So Realmbreaker, for Krim's sake, he likes it because he likes milling people, which I think is like literally the least important aspect of this card.
It turns on C double.
Yeah, his rogues get turned on. Yeah, like, but this card is absurd, right? So what I see with this card is you got to get on the battlefield for 3 mana, but then every turn your mono blue deck or mono red deck or whatever essentially has a rampant growth. Like, odds are someone's going to have lands in their graveyard, fetch lands in their graveyard, plus you're milling. And when you consider that commander decks are 40 lands, that's a pretty high percentage that you're going to hit at least one land with the mill. So I see this as a repeatable rampant growth for non-green decks. And then the last mode is actually a pretty sweet way to close out the game. Obviously, the full-on against odds meme potential is you're playing all 15 Praetors and you're a 5-color deck and you like put them all into play and it's really sweet. But imagine you're playing like a mono blue deck and you don't have really good ramp options, so you're playing this as ramp. Jin-Gitaxias is a pretty powerful card that you could just be playing as a finisher. And since Jin-Gitaxias are 10 mana, 7 mana, you're not even paying that big of a tax to tutor around the battlefield. Or like Shieldred the Apocalypse, Shieldred Whispering One. Those are just really good black cards that you could play with a straight face anyway. And then this is going to take and give you the option to tutor that out. So I actually think this is like, for non-green decks, I don't know, is this a staple? Is this just like one of the best ramp spells if you don't have access to green?
All right, so I've been thinking about this card all week, actually. Like, seriously, I've been pondering this card ever since it was spoiled.
Are you up or down on it?
And I've come to the... you've heard my initial take on this on the MTG Goldfish podcast, but my conclusion is this card sucks.
Oh, no!
Here's where I'm coming from, right? So on one hand, you're like, okay, for 3 mana, and then you get repeated rampant growth. That's got to be insane, right? Especially in the non-green and white decks, right? There's no other way to do this. But I think this card is exceptionally good at getting you 2nd and 3rd place. Because, you ramp some, right?
That's why Krim likes it.
I'm doing the thing. And then as people die, you start losing your resources, right? Either you piled it on one person and people knock that person out and you lose like your lands, or you spread it out. And you're guaranteeing that your lands kind of get picked off as the game progresses and you are more likely to be the winner. So you would have to do something sneaky, like play this ramp, and then insta-win before anyone dies, right?
But you want to if you get fetch lands, then you could crack the fetches and get your own lands, and then they won't go away.
Well, that's
true.
This is true. If you're not getting,
but then you need to get on-color fetches with your thing. Also, like fetch lands don't help you if they don't match your mana base as well, right? Because the fetch lands themselves don't tap for mana, and those are the most likely cards to be there. But you're milling people, so I don't know. I just feel the fact that you lose lands as the game progresses makes this a lot worse than it sounds. So you'll look like you're winning, and then very quickly you'll not be winning because you'll start losing lands. I think that's a problem.
If I'm not knocked out first, though, I kind of consider it a win already. So
yeah, we're playing for second here, Richard. That's the Commander Clash way. So that's perfect.
Do you play Demolition Field or something? I feel like if you whiff with this, it's so bad. You spend 3 mana and then another 2 just for milling 3. So
I think this card is bad too.
What if you get a temple with a false god or something?
I mean,
I think
better than nothing.
I think so for 5 mana you get to hopefully rampant growth. If you whiff, then that's like you might as well just concede. No, I'm kidding, but it just feels really bad. But like 5 mana, you hopefully rampant growth, and then 7 mana you explosive vegetation, and then 9 mana you like triple. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that great. And then you do have to run Praetors. I guess if you do have like 1 or 2 Praetors in the deck, ideally like 2. Right. Then it gets better as a late game thing, but 10 mana is so much.
Who's gonna make it so much to get there?
Yeah, that's like.
I mean, it's ramping you. Oh, y'all!
You need to hit someone's You need to hit someone's coffers or a cradle.
10 mana is fine.
You can Realmbreaker.
I'm looking at like all my paper decks, and I can't see like where would I want to run this. I don't know. It's so much mana.
So a little bit of math. I don't know if this will change anyone's opinion, but let's assume the person you target is playing 38 lands, a pretty typical commander number. 76% that you will mill at least one land in those 3 cards. And then obviously if you ever double mill, there'll be a land in there for later. That doesn't get around the Richard issue of like, if people die, then the lands go away. But
Can you run the numbers for me with 31 lands, which is the average number of lands, like the typical commander player?
30. It's more like, do you want to spend 5 mana for a 70% chance rampant growth? Like, no.
I mean,
if I don't have anything else,
if you're not in green, what else are you could do?
There's such thing as mana rocks. I don't know, like other colors all
they get
ramp.
blown up. The 70
these lands also get blown up.
70
it's like kind of in between.
67% if you're, I guess 68 if you round up. If you go down to 31
so
lands.
MBFCs like break this. You don't get MBFCs, but
That's
the
true.
upside is you can get someone's coffers. If you get a coffers, this is insane, right?
Yeah, it hits non-basics, and you
If
could
you get someone's
play.
Cradle, Ancient Tomb, like you get non-basics.
And if you're playing this, then I would say like the value of
Play
Strip
Sword of Body
Mine,
and Mind?
or like but the value of Strip Mine, or like Wasteland, or Field of Ruin Effects, Demolition Field, that goes up, right? Because then you can snipe those lands from the battlefield and then reanimate them. I also don't know if I buy the like lands going away when someone dies being a deal breaker. Like, wouldn't that make Agent of Treachery and Gonti and like a million other commander staples bad if the problem is like, oh, eventually like that player's gonna die and the card goes away? Like, people play tons of cards that
When you
steal
play
their
Agent of Treachery, you
opponent's
get one
things.
card, it does its thing, right? If you get like one swamp, like right? You're banking on getting like 4 or 5 lands off this thing that will then go away, right?
I guess
So
that's
my-
You know what would be really
true.
sad? You get to 9 mana, you're just about to crack this and unleash all your praetors, and then someone's like, "No, I
They
pay 2 life and
concede.
kill myself." You're like, "Come on, dude."
The spice play. No, but what really
the
happens is
spike
you get to
kill.
you're at 9 mana. People are like, oh, at 10 mana you can crack and get all those predators, and then somebody removes your Realmbreaker, and then you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the argument that mana rocks get destroyed is kind of counts for the Realmbreaker as well. Like, if you want to spend 5 mana to rampant growth,
It
you
would
can
be like
play
7 mana, get 2 lands, and then this thing blows up. Would you do that in Grixis? Are we that desperate for lands?
Grixis,
No.
maybe. Yeah, but
Is it Sword of the Animus like? Sword of the Animus is 4 mana. Maybe get 2 land. Okay, that's explosive. That's good. That's a good rate.
But
Burnished Heart is 6 mana. Get 2 basics. Do you play Burnished Heart or Realmbreaker?
I can't believe I'm falling to this level, but and it can mill someone out. Maybe Krim was right all along. Like, what if you need to
Krim.
mill
Set this into place,
someone?
like Krim.
Krim's like in the headpiece in there. He's like sick. He's puking his guts out. He's like, I can mill him out.
I thought I could convince you it was a good card without going there, but yeah, it's a Nephalia
God.
Drown
Their
Yard.
bomb.
It's a
so
better
good.
Nephalia Drown Yard, yeah.
Sword of Body and Mind all
You
over
mill the
again.
Cauldra piece and then exile it.
Oh,
and...
God.
I gotta say though, the last mode is way better than the actual world tree. So first of all, it's colorless mana, and gods are so much worse than praetors. Especially, I don't think anybody of us has one of the praetors in their list, but there are more of them, and
They're good.
like Alishno and all of them are just insane. For example, so just if you have the budget for praetors and can get to, I don't think 10 mana is that much. Maybe I play a lot of RAM, but
Oh.
I feel like 10. I also feel like people will be incentivized to kill you before you reach 10, but that is Commander. They will do this regardless.
If you're like a Praetor deck, like if your goal is to jam out Praetors deck, this card is really
Sure.
fun. Like it's going to be
Yeah.
the best way of doing that. Also, you could like play Maskcode Nexus, and now all the creatures in your library are Praetors, and you can get out your entire deck that way. And people have been tagging me a lot for like, oh, is this really good in Changelings? I personally won't, because like I run the World Tree, but I'm running it mostly just because it's good mana fixing, because I have a 5-color deck. I've activated the World Tree like maybe 3 times out of like 60, 70 games. It's really hard. It's a lot of mana.
And Changelings are like 1/1s and 2/2s.
Yes.
Like it's not like you're getting an Elish Norn or something. Yeah, I guess that's true.
I still win the game. It's just like, oh, I dropped Mirror Entity. All my 2/2s and now are hitting like 10/10s.
I'm on Team Crim. You play Sword of Body and Mind. You hit the black player, trying to get their coffers.
Get the coffers.
And then this
but then you need a Urborg.
Really
like, okay,
and
happy
they're like,
coffers.
cool.
Congratulations.
I'm living death, and you're all dead. But okay, whatever, right? We'll just ignore that part, and you just hit their coffers, get the coffers, and this card is insane. And then afterwards, you get the Vesuva, and you copy.
I don't know. This card's insane.
And
but
then the Dark
it's
Depths.
definitely playable if you are playing a very niche strategy, I guess.
All right. I'm next. Conjurer's Mantle. 1 and a white. It's an equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has vigilance. When equipped creature attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a card that shares a creature type with that creature from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Equip 1. Is this
such a Richard card?
Yeah.
Is this not like the best like tribal card draw thingy? Like people love playing like Descendants Path and like these really like janky like try to draw cards when you match card types. This is just like 3 mana and an attack, and you get to look at 6. No, you guys are all shaking. This card's terrible.
Oh,
I don't
no,
know.
I mean,
Is this not good?
It's limited to tribal decks. Like you got to be an actual tribal deck. So, but if you're a tribal deck, it's great, right? Like it's cheap to cast, it's cheap to equip. You don't have to get any combat damage. You just need to attack. It's like sort of Animist for creatures in tribal decks, essentially. So if I'm playing a tribal deck that has a bunch of early game creatures, I would play this every time. I think it gets worse if you're playing like dragons or something, like a big creature style tribal deck. But as soon as I saw it, I was like, wow, this is like the ultimate Kithkin card. It is like the ultimate Kithkin tribal card. Like it's designed for Richard to play in decks like Kithkin and birds and so forth. So in those decks, I think it's going to be one of the best cards in your deck.
Yeah. What's the probability? Does anybody know? Like if anybody, I'm asking Seth.
How many
say you play
creatures?
30 tribal creatures.
30 is like a pretty average number, I would say, for like a committed tribe.
Okay, I can give you this. So playing 30 creatures, you get to hit 6 cards deep, right?
Yeah.
Your odds of hitting one or more creatures is 89%.
I think that's pretty consistent.
You're basically always going to hit at least one, and your chances of hitting 2 or 3 are actually pretty good. So you might actually get some selection and get to choose the better one. It's over 50% to hit 2 creatures with 30 tribe members in your deck. So, I mean, seems like a tribal staple. Why wouldn't you play this in an aggro tribal deck?
And you equip it on like your biggest creature, and it will have vigilance, so it can protect you. Like, nice.
There's actually text on there too.
It's +1 and vigilance, which is like it's not the best offensive stats, but if you put it on a big enough creature that can attack easily anyway, then the vigilance is actually nice.
I would play this card without any offensive stats. So the fact that you get +1/+1 and vigilance is like super bonus. And it's an attack. Your creature doesn't have to survive combat. It's just an attack trigger.
Yeah. I kind of wish it was colorless. That's my one thing. Is like the other thing is that being white, like zombies and elves and a lot of the most popular tribes goblins are just not really white based tribes. So I think that's the other thing that keeps its power in check a little bit, is just like some of the best tribes aren't normally in white.
I feel like they could have just dropped the vigilance and then made it colorless, right? Like
they tacked it on just to give it white.
To make it white, basically, yeah.
Just to reduce its power level, they gave it vigilance. All right, Tomer, what do you have for us?
Okay, this is another Crim card, but this is one that I actually feel strongly about as well, that I'm going to be running as Value Town. And I think this is probably the strongest, if not the strongest of my choices at least. This is Faerie Mastermind. This is a blue Fairy Rogue. It's 2 mana, 1 and a blue for 2/1 Fairy Rogue with Flash, Flying, and whenever an opponent draws their second card each turn, you draw a card. Plus, it has an activated ability, a 3 and a blue, so 4 mana total, for each player draws a card. So, for 2 mana, you flashes into play, whenever your opponents are going to be drawing their second card, or just like flash it in your opponent's end step or whatever like that, or whatever. So it's going to be a little bit harder to remove it or play around, at least for the first trigger. I think since it can draw basically like it could draw basically one card per opponent. It could draw like up to 3 cards per turn cycle. But if it's drawing a single card per turn cycle consistently, like 80% of the time or higher, this card is like straight gas. It's a 2/1 flyer, so it holds swords and everything very well. And it's just going to sit around at the table. It doesn't ask your opponents, do you pay the 1 or any of that nonsense. It doesn't have any of like the Esper Sentinel issues or heuristic study issues. It just passively does it. I don't think anybody would play around it either. And even if they do, you still have that activate ability if you really need to draw cards. Everybody draws 1 card and you draw 2 cards essentially on an opponent's turn, because they draw on their draw phase, and then whenever you could force them to draw their second card essentially. What do you guys think? Do you think
I need to know, Seth, if there's a heuristic study on the table, Phil has one, and then Tomer plays Faerie Mastermind.
Nope.
Do you pay the 1?
Nope. No, a man's got to have a code, Richard, and my code is not paying for heuristic study. It doesn't matter how painful that might be. Like, you gotta live up to your code. This card's busted though, right? This is
it's
white
so good
Esper Sentinel. Like, I think if you mathed out a typical game, like playing this on turn 2, I bet you draw as many cards as Esper Sentinel does coming down on turn 2. Like, just sitting out throughout the course of the game. Like,
and it has evasion.
It wears equipment well. It flips Dowsing Dagger. It has a built-in ability that can draw you extra cards. Like, although I think the ability is worse in Commander and 60-card formats, right? Because each opponent draws a card, and then you'll draw 2 cards, so you're actually giving your opponents more cards than you're getting. So I think its ability doesn't scale with Commander very well, but I don't think you need that very often. You just play this and let it sit out and reap its rewards. Is this a staple? Do you just play this could you just play this in any blue deck? Discounting like, I didn't want to be on theme or whatever, but like power level wise, could you play it like Esper Sentinel, where this is just like alongside heuristic study in your card draw slot?
I think so, yeah.
What?
I mean, we've seen the Council of 4 be brutal.
Wait, do you guys really think it's that good?
Yes,
I think
against
here's the
Richard,
problem.
you don't think it's good? It's
okay.
here's
the thing,
it's
right?
a 2-mana evasive thing. It holds your Dowsing Daggers.
It holds Dowsing Daggers, but if you slap it on turn 2, so if you play like an early Esper Sentinel or heuristic study, people will play their Mana Rocks, they will play their Rampant Growth, whatever. You get value immediately, so it's that like really early draw engine. I feel Faerie Mastermind you play, and you're not going to draw cards till like turn 4 or 5 or something like that, because people will just be ramping. They'll be doing stuff, but they're not necessarily drawing a second card yet, right? So to me, this is like competing with Blue Sun Zenith or something, like some kind of like late card game draw engine, as opposed to an early drop that like ensures you hit all your land drops. Because aren't people ramping? Like who's playing Signing Blood? It's like who's drawing second cards on like the early turns?
Well, you don't have to consider it a turn 2 play. Like you could be ramping on turn 2 instead and consider it more of a mid game play. Like
that's what I mean. I consider this a mid game card,
Yeah.
right? And then as a mid game card, is it better than the other draw options? Whereas Esper Sentinel and Heuristic Study are early game plays, right? They're like 1 mana, draw like a billion.
Well, Heuristic Study isn't any time of the game play, but I think this is not as good as Heuristic Study, obviously, but I think it's second best in terms of generic. Maybe Mystic. You could say Mystic Remore is better for CDH in particular, but I think this is even CDH.
You would take this
playable.
over Esper Sentinel?
Yes.
Ooh,
Wow.
interesting.
I mean, so think of it like a Spirited Companion. Like, because of Flash, you should be able to flash it in, get the first draw with like a card draw effect on the stack. So you should get an ETB draw card essentially. And then you get the upside of it sitting out, and people draw cards. Like, all it takes is one of me playing a Phyrexian Arena, and you're guaranteed an extra card each turn cycle, or one person playing a Heuristic Study. There's so much card draw in the format that I feel like your odds of triggering this being like a personal Howling Mind, I think is pretty high. Like, isn't someone drawing an extra card most turn cycles if you think about all the effects that are going on? Maybe not on turn 2. I think you might be right about that. On turn 2, it's probably not going to draw like Esper Sentinel. But once the game gets going, like...
So Tomer said Heuristic Study then Faerie Mastermind. Where do
In
you slot
casual.
this relative to Phyrexian Arena?
Ooh.
Higher, right? This is definitely higher than Arena.
Yes, I think it doesn't cost you any life. It comes with a body.
Painful
I would
Truths
say,
or Faerie Mastermind.
oh, this Faerie Mastermind for sure. I will say I rank Esper Sentinel ahead by a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Unlike
this is
Tomer.
number 3 then. This is the third best card draw, you're saying?
I think maybe Esper Sentinel is better in CDH, but in casual games, I don't know. There's like a lot of people who just have like really creature heavy strategies, for example. So it's pretty easy to not draw cards off it. And also you could play around Esper Sentinel a little bit easier, where you could just pay the 1, unless you're like
true.
an equipment deck or something like that. You can.
Yeah,
The option is there. Whether or not people do that or not. But this one is like, are you really just not going to cast your second spell each turn? You could, but like I don't think people are going to actually do that.
Say, draw
I would
cards,
say
Draw their
top.
second spell.
Yeah, draw their
Draw
second
their
card.
second spell. But yeah, are you just not going to draw a card on your turn?
No,
Like,
of course
I'm
not.
gonna-
I think
Are you
it's
gonna
top
say I
5.
will I think it's just harder to. It's a harder ask for people to be like, don't draw any card beyond your draw phase, right?
I
What do
think
you put
it's
above it, Seth? If top 5.
I think Rhystic Study is better. I think Esper Sentinel is arguably better. Maybe this is number 3. Like I think those
Mystic
would be the
Remora is
two.
better in
Mystic
CDH,
Remora?
Oh,
probably,
I guess Mystic Remora. I guess depending on your power level.
but, yeah.
It
But
is pretty
there's-
good
outside of
against
CD.
those cards, though. Like, if your opponent
Yeah,
slams
it
down a
is.
Remora, then you pretty much draw without the upside of having to pay for it, which, sure.
So yeah,
nobody does,
maybe
but-
it's 4, 3, 4, somewhere in that range. I think I definitely rank it ahead of like Painful Truth, Sign and Blood style effects. I rank it ahead of like Blue Sun Zenith style effects. And I guess like I don't know.
What about Sphinx, Consecrated Sphinx?
Like how do you? Well, this is like 2 mana consecrated
This is a
Sphinx.
little bit different. This is like an early mid game consecrated Sphinx, and consecrated Sphinx is like
It's-
late game or reanimator.
It's hard to compare to something like some of the green mask card draw, like Rishkar's Expertise or Garrick or like Blue Sun Zenith. I almost feel like it's a different category of card draw. Like you
Yeah,
have
it's incremental draw versus burst draw.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of like, it's hard for me to compare those. Would I replace my Rishkar's Expertise with this? No, I'd probably play both of them, but I still think this card's like super good. Where do you rank it, Richard? You seem skeptical. Where are you at with this
I
one?
think it's a good card, but you guys aren't singing praises to Spirited Companion in the same way I do, right? like as a Spirited Companion, it's exceptionally strong, but in terms of raw card draw, Esper Sentinel definitely I put above this. I would actually put the 3-mana draw 3s above this,
Ooh.
and then this comes there. So I would put Painful Truths above Faerie Mastermind, and then Faerie Mastermind is like right there. So it is a very good card, but you're all speaking like it's a Rhystic Study or something, right? Like it's not like that level of staple, I don't think.
I got you, Richard. Faerie Mastermind, flashing an end step, untap, Secret Rendezvous, trigger the Faerie Mastermind. You get a 4 card.
You draw your Dowsing Dagger, equip Dowsing Dagger onto the Faerie Mastermind, attack with it, flip the Dowsing Dagger.
So if Faerie Mastermind was white, I would play a Secret Rendezvous before it. I believe. I value the burst a lot more, and like as an early like this is more of a late game play, even though its mana value is 2. Like when you're actually drawing cards, it's like mid game, right? And in mid game, you have a lot of options. Like you could rip off one of the green card draw spells for like 4 mana, draw 10, or you could Sphinx and stuff like that. So it's still good, but because like Tomer said, it holds a dagger. It's a flash creature. It cantrips. It can block. It can attack, and then it can draw you 1, 2, 3 cards or something like that, right? So I think it's good in that sense, but I take 3 mana, draw 3 higher, I think.
It's
It
also
is
a Faerie
also-
Rogue.
Yeah, it is very meta dependent, I think. So if you play against me, like on Commander Clash, maybe I pull off some jank tribe or something. If you play against me in paper, every commander I play draws cards. I'm gonna draw a card. Maybe Richard is right. So I ramp for the first 3 turns and then I start drawing cards. Except for Jadar, then I start drawing cards on turn 3, which curves in perfect for my opponent to slam this down and draw, at least for me, every turn. Let's say realistically 60%, later 70, later it's 100% actually. With Lowness, I draw cards in it also counts on other turns, right? So if I crack 2 clues
You'd have to
and
draw
step,
2 cards on somebody else's turn, though.
So often I just keep up mana and crack clues. So there's triggers unless I think about
You
it
only
and crack one
one
clue
then
each. Yeah. If I don't misplay, I might misplay though. So very, very playgroup dependent. But if you have me and Seth in your playgroup, you should probably play.
Oh, you're good.
This.
I mean,
You're so
You guys
good.
would never play around this, right? If there's a Faerie
I'm not
Mastermind
never.
on the table,
Maybe
you
we'll
wouldn't
always
hold
crack
back
the
your
keys.
card draw, right?
I'll
I
always
mean-
pay the 1 for Ristic, but I don't see. You can't really expect me to not draw cards.
No.
That's a tall ask.
I might think twice about my like ponder or something and opt.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
I'm not gonna avoid my
You'll cast
painful
your off
truths or
main
whatever.
phase just to
Yeah.
assert dominance.
Richard, would you not play a Spirit Companion if I had this on the battlefield?
No, I would definitely play Spirit.
Yes. Yeah, the Stogs. I'm sure this is a Crim's favorite card. It's also a Fairy Rogue. It's his
Oh,
two favorite
yes.
tribes. My favorite tribe is Fairies, so like, yeah, we just. it's
My
good
favorite
stuff.
tribe is World Champions, so yes. I will play Yuta
True.
Takahashi.
True. That,
It looks so much like it. It looks like a Photoshop. It's ridiculous.
The art is sick. I like it a lot. It's a cool pose too.
I'm curious if the foil looks good. Like that blue cross.
There's a
I
lot of
wonder if
that
it's,
bright
foiled out.
white blue. So I think it's gonna pop. But yeah,
All right, Phil, what do you have for us?
All right, I have a card where the comments would say, well, that is such a fill deck. And I will try this for sure. It's Rashmi and Ragavan. Timur, so green, blue, red, and a colorless. Legendary creature, elf, monkey. It's two creatures in one. So it's one of these team up cards. 2/4. So a lot of text for... It is weirdly worded, so let's see. Whenever you cast your first spell during each of your turns, exile the top card of target opponent's library and create a treasure token. That is pretty cool. Then you may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost if the spell... if it's a spell with mana value less than the number of artifacts you control. If you don't cast it this way, you may cast it this turn. So it's a weird wording. So basically, whenever you cast your first spell on each of your turns, which is... fair. You create a treasure token, which is pretty good. Exile the top card, and yeah, if you have a lot of treasures, you cast it for free. Otherwise, you can pay mana for it. That's the other way to word it, is otherwise pay for it. It is not that flashy or combo-y, but it just seems like such sweet value. You steal stuff from the opponent. It's not as... So if you remember the old Rashmi, it's... slightly similar wording, but it counts every turn, so you're incentivized to play counters and annoy your opponent and get value out of it. Would be sweet with this, but it would be insane if you create a treasure every turn cycle, every opponent's turn as well. So I think this one is fair, and people will maybe not get as scared and keep it on the battlefield, and you can slowly accumulate value and maybe cast something for free. I know it's a little boring, but man, it feels like such a sweet
Phil
engine.
card. It's teamer theft. It
it's-
seems fair though, because it's only a
It
one.
seems
You only
very
get
fair,
one
yeah.
sugar. It's on your turn, but it does want you to be a little bit artifacty, maybe with treasures or maybe
get some
clues or whatever
clues,
at the very least. But like you also go like a full artifact team or artifact deck to get the extra mana
Timur steals
efficiency
stuff,
out of
though.
it.
You can say like, oh, I build around stealing stuff, and then you can play blatant thievery, get a treasure from it, maybe cast something.
Yeah.
Ooh, Lord, I hope this makes it on MTGO.
I think so.
It does seem safe, right? Like I don't know if I
think so.
like people get irrationally afraid of you stealing their cards though. When you really think through this card, I think it's fine. Like almost half the time it's going to hit a land and you kind of do nothing. Like so there's a pretty high whiff percentage there, so you shouldn't be super scared of it, but I still think people might I don't know. I think people are going to try to kill it. I don't know if it'll stay on the
Maybe,
battlefield just because people don't like their stuff being messed with.
Yeah, it's weird because your own library should be the scary one because you can
Right,
build
because
around
you can
this.
build around it. Yeah.
So it should be fair, but yeah, people get scared.
You get to ramp every turn, right? Like you,
you get the treasure.
that's true.
You
It's-
just
you get a
cast
treasure
spell,
each
you
turn.
get a treasure. That's pretty good. And then if you hit something good off someone's library, you could potentially cast it for free, which is gross, or you can just pay mana for it.
It could be like if you hit like a 5-drop, if you have enough treasures, so you cast your first spell on a turn, you make a treasure, so you're going up 1 mana, you get a card, so you're up 1 card, and then you get to cast a card for like a 5-drop, for example, for free. So essentially ramped you 5 mana, gave you a treasure, drew you a card, but you don't know what you're going to hit, right? So you could just hit a land, and you can't even play the land. It's a cast, so it could whiff entirely.
Play around it, right? You can.
Yeah, you have to use like Lantern of Revealing or whatever. Like everybody, look at every top part of everybody's library or something.
Memory lapse
or you could,
and
like,
stuff, right? You
Yeah,
can build around
Memory
it
lapse,
pretty
Bounce to
brutally
the
if you
top of the
want to,
library, yeah.
So I think this card's very fair, and there is a build around on it. You have to run certain cards for it to really shine, and I think that's a really good place to be.
I kind of hate it though because it's Ragavan.
Would you leave it? If someone played it, you wouldn't like, oh, I gotta get rid of this thing.
It depends on if my so if I'm playing Conjurer, for example, like if I'm playing a deck that's like a combo where certain cards are very important to me,
you're gonna exile your Conjurer.
Then you're gonna exile my Conjurer. It happens, dude. The worst one was when I gave a fake list of Conjurer to the table for Commander Clash. I was running this on. I showed a fake list. And then I had 2 Conjurer pieces in my hand. I had like 78 cards or something in my library. And then Crim Gaunted me, looked at the top 4 cards and hit one of them. Hit my final Conjurer piece. It was stupid. So this is what's gonna happen. I'm gonna run Conjurer, and then Phil's like, "Whoa, I'm gonna play Rashmi and Ragavan. Please don't kill it." I'll be like, "No, it will die. It will die and die again. Never will it target me." But like if I'm not running that, then yeah, whatever. Just take whatever card you want up the top. It's fine.
All right, Seth, what do you have for us?
Hell yeah.
Oh, so you know me. I like a little gambling and I like drawing cards, and we have a Magic the Gathering card that kind of combines all those things together. Dance of Calamity, 8 mana sorcery. It's a red card. Says shuffle your library, and then as many times as you choose, you can exile the top card of your library, and then if the total mana value of the card you exile this way is 13 or less, you can cast any number of spells from among those cards without paying their mana cost. So this is like Blackjack, the Magic card. 8 mana casts some number of cards, maybe, or maybe you hit something expensive and go over 13 and nothing happens. I want to cast this card just because it looks fun. Like, the way it's going to play out, I think is going to be really interesting. There's going to be a lot of tension. Do I keep going? Do I stop? What's the top card of my library? So it seems really fun. Is this card good in any way is, I guess, my question. We see Ad Nauseam be busted. People play Ad Nauseam in CDH decks, but that's 5 mana. This is way more mana. This can Demonic Consultation and just exile your entire library. If you don't care about casting the spells, you can just, put your entire library into exile and Thassa's Oracle or something.
1 black instant. This is 8 mana sorcery.
Basically the same. Basically the same.
I think this card is like a major flavor. I don't know if it's good, but it's literally Blackjack because it's 8 mana value. Right, and then it's 13, so 8 plus 13, 21.
Yeah, 21.
So
wow.
It's a nod to the thing, which is cool. I don't think it's good, but I'm totally on board to play it because it's fun. It looks like a very fun card.
And I mean, if you get lucky, it does a lot of ramping, right? If you hit 12 mana value worth of spells, that's like making 4 mana and you drew some cards. Yeah.
Yep.
You could hit one more, maybe get a one drop.
Yeah, maybe get another one drop out of there.
Or what if you built like kobolds or something?
That's
tribal
right.
or Ornithopter tribal. Just like the total mana value of your deck is less than 13, so you just cast this and put it all into play.
If you're playing like Cheerios or something, that would be actually really good. That would be. I want to see that deck now.
You think
actually,
there's going to be
awesome.
Like a legacy deck that wishes for this, and then I don't
puts
know,
all the kobolds into play.
Somewhere.
Yes.
How can you cheat this out though? You need to somehow cheat this thing.
8 mana? I don't know.
Mystic's Mastery.
Figure it out.
Yeah. So the problem is if you cheat on spells, you want other spells than just this to cheat out, and these spells are expensive, so it's gonna be a risky.
Is there like an indomitable creativity for sorceries or something? Where You just play nothing but like 0 mana rocks and dorks or whatever, and then you somehow cheat this out and just play your whole deck.
I don't know.
What is
mana.
the...
Oh, well, there's like
You can cast all
Mind's
the kobolds
Desire
you
and
want.
stuff.
Spell.
Like, is there like a
They are
target of Mind's
expensive.
Desire? I don't know.
Spell shift. Counter target 4 mana blue, and it's literally polymorph, but for instants or sorceries. You counter the instant or sorcery and then reveal cards until you hit an instant or sorcery, then you get to play it for free. So there is. It technically exists.
So you need to counter your own instant or sorcery?
So if
What's it called
actually spell
Ramping.
shift, that's from Planetary Chaos. If you played 4, well, I guess this wouldn't work for Commander, but I was going to say if you played 4 of them, you would have to draw one to cast it. The other 3 would be 12 mana value. So as long as everything else in your deck is 0, you're off to the races.
There's gotta be some deck we can build here.
You can play all the like Crashing Footfalls, Ancestral Visions, because they have no mana value. Yeah, Restore Balance.
I like.
Oh my god!
I kind of want to build this. I just want to build around it. It seems fun to build around as a deck building challenge, and it also just seems fun to resolve. Like just throw it in a deck and just like it'll be a fun experience at the table watching someone resolve this card. Everyone's gonna be into it. It's gonna like, and that's what Commander's about, right? Like having a good time with your friends and a cool experience at the table. And I feel like this card's gonna like give that experience pretty often when it shows up.
Wait, is there like a wand? That
Yeah,
you're
I'll
trying
wand
to
or
Way
use?
into
whatever.
this. Most of the wands hit your
there's also-
opponents. Is there a
Yeah,
wand
yeah.
that hits
I
yourself?
thought there was a new one that you can wand
Yeah,
yourself.
there's a
no?
new like birthing pot for spells, right?
Oh,
Oh,
that's
there's like a
awesome.
blue
card.
one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Is that
like-
a real card or an alchemy card?
That is a
Correct,
real
yeah.
card.
Oh my god.
Okay, so you can use a convoke. You can play kobolds. You can convoke a spell and then try a birthing pod into this one.
Yeah.
How do you? Yeah.
There's got to be some way. Okay, we'll come back to this. There's got to be some way to do
Let
it.
us
could do a
know in
whole
the
episode
comment
on this
section
card,
how
yeah.
you make a sweet deck around this.
How do you break it?
Break this card. I love it.
All right, next up. I'm gonna go with Wand of the Worldsoul, a card I'll never play, but I think other people will be excited about it. 2 and a white. ETB's tapped. It's an artifact. You can tap it to add a white, so it's a mana rock, and then tap it. The next spell you cast this turn has Convoke. So
This is so cool.
this is like a crazy mana rock, right? Because you can tap it if you have like 2 creatures. It's a Worn Power Stone, I guess, right? If you have 3 creatures, it becomes a Thran Dynamo or something. And it itself is a mana rock. So if you have no creatures, you can just use it as like a 3-mana rock. I don't play mana rocks. I'll never play this. But if you're a mana rock believer, this seems pretty good, right? No?
I mean, I love this card. I think 3 mana rocks have kind of gotten fallen out of favor a little bit, but Wizards has been printing this. I don't know if it's even a cycle technically, but like they've been printing these colored mana, 1 color, 3 mana rocks with a big upside. Like you got the red one that ETBs copies a creature. You got the black one I think makes zombies. You got the blue one that's the clock that eventually will draw you a bunch of cards. They're all really good. I think 3 mana rocks that have an upside are actually really powerful, and this has a huge upside. I think you probably, I don't know, would you play this in just a generic, like, white creature deck? I think in a token deck or something, it's ridiculous. Like, if you're going lighting and have a lot of bodies, this can do some busted stuff. I guess, like, tap 2 creatures to get, like, a double mana rock out of it, or 3 creatures to get a Gilded Lotus. I guess that's fine, but I don't know. In token decks, for sure, I would be all about this card. I think even you would play it in a token deck, Richard, right? Like, would you give up your hate of... Really? You hate mana rocks that much?
I especially
Sam
okay,
Black
in
really
white.
got them.
So
Man, we
in
gotta have
white
a
and
code.
green, you will never catch me playing a mana rock. If you see a mana rock, you know it's an imposter. Get out of here. I've been
wow.
kidnapped by aliens. Even in non-white and green, I will very rarely play mana rocks, and if I do, they have to be indestructible or something. But even then, with Farewell, like it's dicey. So I will world treat
Embrace that
Realmbreaker
everything dies, Richard.
before I play a Signet or something like that.
What
I
did
like
Tomer and
cards.
Phil think? Yeah.
I think this card is only good for go wide, but once you're in like tokens, like
How
if you're in a
many
tokens deck,
creatures do you need on the battlefield for
I
this
think
to
you
be worth
need-
it?
I think you need at least 3. You want like for it. Also depends on what you're convoking out, right? Like it's a bit of a clunky card because you need to have a big spell in your hand to convoke out. Because if you're just like if you have like a 3-drop in your hand, then this card's kind of meh. But if you have like a 5-drop or higher that you want to be convoking out, like I don't know, like an original Elvish Norn, for example, well, a good top end for your go wide token strategy, then tapping like 5 creatures or something, convoking it out is actually pretty gas. So it's I don't know, it's clunkier card than I would hope it to be, honestly, but it's really good in the deck that it was printed in Kazla, because Kazla gives you a bonus. It's scry 2 and draw a card for each time you cast a convoke spell. And there's not that many convoke spells. You could just... And it's a token deck, so now you can turn all your other spells into convoke spells. You draw more cards off it and stuff, and that's all good things. But I don't know, it's a bit clunky. It also taps on all your stuff, so you can't attack with them afterwards, or you need like vigilance, and then maybe cast this post-combat. So it is clunky. Maybe Torrens is good too. I don't know. It's a clunky one.
I play the other 3 mana rocks that Seth mentioned. I think except for Omnath, where I don't play mana rocks, but I do play Midnight Clock, Cursed Mirror, and the Crowded Crypt, I think it's called. And this is actually Crowded Crypt is so good. So I think of these, I think the white one might be let's assume it's a cycle. It is very clunky. Like the tapping down creatures kind of sucks in your main phase. Unless you want to instant speed something. I think the ceiling of this is insane though. Like if you say, you need at least 3 creatures. If you have 10 creatures, they don't need to be not summoning 6. So you can just tap them and cast something insane. I know that is dreaming big, but I like dreaming big in Commander. So I kind of want this card to be good. The artwork is gorgeous, and I like an excuse to play a 3 mana rock with
ETB's
upside.
tapped, so you can't just play
sucks.
it and then
That
something
really
out.
sucks. Yeah,
it's also white. It's a white mana rock, so they restricted the color too. So they think it's good.
It's really good in the precon because like one of the things you can do in the precon is you can on the end step before your turn. You can tap down all your... It's a token deck. So you tap down all your tokens, and you dump all that mana into Secure the Waste. It's X and a white, instant speed, make X number of 1/1 warrior tokens, I think. So in the precon, you could like... It's mid-late game or whatever. You have a bunch of dirty creatures on the battlefield. And then, surprise, you have like 6 or 5 more mana to dump into this giant X spell, and then you have a huge army. You drop your Anthem or whatever on the ground afterwards. You swing for lethal. So it makes a lot of sense in the deck, but you need to be tokens for sure. I think the best of the cycle though is Cursed Mirror though. No, people need to respect that red one.
Midnight Clock's really good too. I think I like Midnight Clock a lot, but
I play all of them. They're just so.
What are we missing? Green? We don't have green. All right.
Oh,
yeah. Speaking of
green,
green
henge. Oh, it's just so far above the rest.
Okay,
you don't notice it.
Yeah, you spent 3 mana to cast it, right? Like, oh boy. All right, my last card for you all is a card that I will probably not play, but it's very important to get the word out. This is Tribute to the World Tree. It's triple green enchantment, so 3 green mana, so it's quite restrictive to green decks. However, the payoff is really freaking high. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card if its power is 3 or greater. Otherwise, put 2+1/+1 counters on it. So, the first part of the card is Elemental Bond. Elemental Bond is whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card if its power is 3 or greater. So it has the Elemental Bond text, but then it has decided to add a new, very critical part of the equation. Otherwise, put 2+1/+1 counters on it. So if you're in a creature deck that is just like making 1/1 tokens, for example, like Torrens, you're going to be drawing cards for casting creatures. Then Torrens, for example, whenever you're casting a creature, you make a 1/1 soldier token or human token or whatever. Well, now it's a 3/3. So not only are you going to be drawing a ton of cards, but now all your small creatures are going to be buffed up. They're going to be good attackers. They're also going to be very good blockers. So you're going to be drawing cards. People are going to be like, we have to deal with this person. Well, good luck dealing with a person when they have, instead of an army of 1/1s, they have an army of 3/3s. And also it's counters, so if you're in a counters matters deck, now everything has +1/+1 counters on it. But yeah, so you're either drawing cards or you're just making a huge army, and this card is cracked. This card's cracked.
Yeah, I mean,
Simic.
it's very, very strong. Like, triple green is a cost, and I think that does limit some of the decks that would otherwise want the effect. But yeah, it's just, it does so many little things. It's absurd with tokens. All your tokens getting 2+1+ counters is ridiculous. It's good card draw. Like, any deck that with a lot of creatures that can cast this, it's probably worth it. Like, Elemental Bond's a fine card that people play to draw cards. Assuming that triple green isn't a deal breaker, this is just, like, way upgraded.
I don't like the Elemental Bond part. I don't play that card. But I do like the pumping everything part. You play this, you play like Avenger of Zendikar, you play Field of the Dead, whatever, right? Like, you just make dirty creatures, and now they're scary. The problem is this is like the... what's that Destiny tribal card, where whenever you cast a creature, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and all your creatures get +1/+1. Everyone sees it coming from far away.
Cathar's Command, yeah.
No. Cathar's Crusade is the same, but
Cracked.
Something of Destiny? Door of Destiny? Not Door of Destiny.
Door of Destiny.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But like, everyone sees this like overrun happening from very far away, and they're gonna murder you before that happens. But I just like playing this as Avenger of Zendikar.
Yeah.
Isn't that insane? For drawing cards, I'd rather just play any of the power-based card draw that Green has, or Toski's.
Just play both. A friend of mine...
But there's so many power-based ones. You run out, right? You
run out of cards. This one is the best, though.
Slots for card draw.
This is incremental draw versus burst draw. You want to have both, I think. I'm with Phil.
Even with incremental draw, though, we have so many variations on this effect now. I actually, when this first was spoiled, I was looking it up, and there's like... Between Guardian Project, Great Henge, Elemental Bomb, there's some Garrix, whatever, that does the same thing. Like, there's 10 cards that work similarly to this. So I think we're even at the point where, even if you want this effect, you got to start prioritizing. So I think this is like how we, like, can you play this in a 3-color deck or a 4-color deck or a 5-color deck? Or is the mana cost just too restrictive? You basically got to be mono green or 2-color, maybe, I guess.
2-color, yes, for sure. I mean, if you have a good mana base.
Yeah, if you have a good mana base. I don't play it.
10 basic mana base. You gotta play all dual lands.
Tomer's never casting this, yeah.
Well, okay, so I actually played against this card on Saturday, and it's just anecdotal evidence, one game. But a person was playing Marin of Clan Neltoth, and he was going out of control. Very early on in the game, turn 3, he put down Tribute of the World Tree, started drawing a bunch of cards. Turn 5, we were like, we have to deal with this. This is getting out of hand. I was playing Zedru. I 2-drop Rest in Peace, which is like destroy target Marin player. Exile all graveyards, and then if a creature would die, instead it's getting exiled, so no death triggers for them either. Despite that, with Tribute to the World Tree, basically, he just did green things instead of black things. He just did green things, drew a billion cards. Underrealm Lich showed up at some point, and now he's like impulse drawing every single time he plays a creature. And it was a arch enemy. Even with Rest in Peace on the battlefield, it was arch enemy, and he still beat us handily. We just couldn't.
Yeah, of course.
We just couldn't. I mean, because every single 1/1, like the ground was no longer attackable because his 1/1s are now 3/3s. We could not attack into him, even with like trample and stuff. We could not attack into him.
So a friend of mine,
spot removal for this tribute.
Well,
a friend of mine recently built a mono green big creature deck, and I gave him my Elemental Bond, which was a few weeks ago. That was one of the best ones of these effects. And he is just, I mean, the card is just insane for this deck. If you're mono green, you don't care about the triple green. My god, your 2/2s are 4/4s, and you draw cards. If your commander creates 4/4 Rhino tokens, or if your commander has 4 power, Like, you are gonna get so much value out of this. And I think you get, like, I mean, Richard said it, Avenger of Zendikar is just pure gas with this. It is insane. Oh my god, you draw a card and all of them are 2/3s.
Scoot Swarm shenanigans would be pretty fun. Yeah, anything like that.
You can just play Kamigan and get a 2/3 out of it. It's like, it is. Oh man, this card. If it was Simic, I'd just slot it into Lonus just for the. Just the everything with 2 extra counters is good. Like, would you play this? Just every creature enters with 2 additional counters? I'm not sure. No. It seems good though. But the card draw is just the better part. Like, I play Elemental Bond if I create 4/4s. Yeah. And man, this is so good. I mean, you play Nykthos stuff.
Like, is if you... Azuri's Predation or something.
Oh, yes.
Like 10 4/4s, you draw 10 cards.
Yes.
And then you start picking off things. Like, if you can somehow make a lot, or like Worm Coil, I guess, like triggers this, right? You get like 2 worm... You get 1 trigger for the initial Worm Coil. When it dies, you get 2 more creatures that will trigger this to draw 2. So if you can somehow be in that sweet spot of making a lot of 3/3s, then you can draw like a ton of cards off of that.
And there's commanders that do that, right? Green Sleeves, Titania. Like there's a list of heavy green commanders that are pretty good at making like repeatable bodies too. So, or like Cauldron of the Call. That's the other direction to go. Is like commanders that make a ton of little tokens, and just turning your 1/1s into 3/3s is kind of ridiculous too.
There's also like go wide tokens is a thing. Like Hamza is a good example of it. It's Selesnya go wide +1/+1 counters. So this is a great way of just putting the counters on things and drawing cards as well. So there's a bunch. So it's the backup deck. I mean, it's 3 colors, so maybe that would be a stretching it. But like the backup deck is also go wide +1/+1 counters and stuff. So
would you play it in
3 colors?
In 3 colors, that seems. If your mana base is insane, you want to play this on turn 3, though, right? It gets worse on turn, significantly worse.
And duels, you could definitely.
You can, but
you just need the fully. You need the fetch shock mana base with triomes.
Oh yeah,
and you can definitely.
I think you can easily do it on 2, obviously 1, but like 3 is like you have to make sure that your mana base, most of your ramp and mana taps for green. That has to be an important thing. You have to figure it out yourself.
All right, last card, Phil. Bring us home. What do you have?
I don't even like this card, but we have to talk about it. This wrecks me. It is Sunfall, 5 mana sorcery, exile all creatures, incubate X, where X is the number of creatures exiled this way, and to read incubate. Create an incubator token with X +1/+1 counters on it, and you can pay 2, transform this artifact, transform it into a 0/0 Phyrexian artifact creature token. Yeah. That is another farewell effect that exiles my beautiful board. At least you get a token for it, which, can I play this in Manu's Karga? It will exile him, though, so no, I don't know. I hate that everything exiles now. I want Indestructible to mean something. It is pretty good, though, and the Incubate token is going to be huge.
I've seen people be really hyped for this card. I'm honestly not convinced I play this card. Nice. I'm not sure. Like, I'm curious what y'all think. So exiling is definitely an upside, but when I think about White Wrath, it like 6 mana or even 5 mana a little bit with Cleansing Nova. You get like flexible Wrath that can hit artifacts, enchantments. And then if you just want to be efficient, you have like Vanquish the Horde, which is often going to be like 2 mana. Is this card actually worth playing in a generic, like if I had token synergies or cared about incubates or something, then I'd be kind of hyped for it. But I don't know, does exile make up for its lack of flexibility and efficiency?
So I'll give you all the exile wraths. So Farewell, okay, that exiles literally anything. Descend upon the Sinful, that's 6 mana, and then you can make an angel if you have Delirium. You have Final Judgment, 6 mana, exile everything. Merciless Eviction, where you get to choose one between artifacts, creatures, enchantments, or planeswalkers. Exile them. That's Orzhov. And that's it. So this is actually the cheapest exile wrath that we have at 5 mana.
But how much does that matter? Like, is is exiling worth paying a mana or two more than Vanquish the Horde, or a mana more, or like giving up the opportunity to play Austere Command? Like, how big of an upside is exiling?
I mean, so you have the indestructible cards, right? This gets around that. It
Recursion is
graveyard recursion.
Yeah, a big one.
It does
you
not
guys are downplaying
save you against Asterius protection.
You guys are downplaying that you're getting like a free 10/10 out of this as well. Like,
If
I
you
still
pay-
play Phyrexian Rebirth in my budget decks. Like,
Oh, yeah.
and every single time I do that, it really overperforms. Like, I usually have like a 15/15 after the fact. I wipe the board. I put like a 15/15 Phyrexian creature token on the battlefield, and then if I have like Lightning Greaves or something, somebody's dead. Like, I just wipe, and then, oh, you don't have any blockers anymore? Well, I'll take 15 to the face. This one is a little bit it's more expensive if you do it that way, but the premise is still the same, where you do have this huge threat as a payoff. That's like, will I run this over Farewell? No. Will I run this over like Austere Command or Cleansing Nova? Probably not too, but like,
So you're a Crim believer. You're going to play 15 Wraths.
But how many Wraths can you play
cutting?
before this is just unplayable? Like, if you're
I
not going
like
to play it
4
over that.
Wraths. This
So-
will
I think
make
that's
the
a
cut.
third.
Yeah.
I
I
feel
mean-
pretty safe if I run
Does
this
it?
and Farewell and maybe Cleansing Nova or something. Like, exiling it prevents death triggers.
Yeah.
Like, exiling is really devastating for some
That's
decks.
true.
White
Wrath tier list.
I really like
Yeah.
exiling
Did we
things.
see that
Everybody's
Did
on
we-
graveyard decks these days, and I like making them cry. That's where I'm here
it's-
for.
It is powerful to get rid of stuff forever. We see that with Farewell. Like, that is a very powerful effect. I don't know. Maybe it makes the cut. I imagine I play Farewell over it. Austere Command Vanquish the Horde. So then that's 3 Wraths that I think I would play over it. And then
If I'm
we're
running Lightning Greaves, this card like goes up like 10 points.
So you put a lot of value in the Incubate then. I was thinking that was mostly like a throwaway fringe benefit. Like
It's like a 10/10 or something. Like, is
It's a
that really...
10/10. Like,
On an empty
even if you're not
board.
like immediately smashing somebody in the face, like, now you have a 10/10 blocker. Who's gonna mess with you?
But would you rather have a 10/10 or would you rather remove all artifacts and enchantments from the battlefield?
Yeah, I want
Something
both.
like that. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm definitely running Farewell. I'm definitely running Ondu Inversion. I like Ondu Inversion a lot too. And then after that, I'd probably run Sunfall. You know, like I want to have a flexible board wipe in my deck for sure.
So I guess it depends on how many Wraths you play. That sounds like it's not quite in the tip-top tier of Wraths for Commander, but maybe it's high enough up the list that it still makes it.
It's a solid number.
I
4
play a lot
for
of
me.
Wraths, and I wouldn't play this unless I keep getting blown out by people's whatever
Graveyard
indestructible
shenanigans.
for free.
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because like if you go through the tier list, right? I don't even there's Farewell, right? But then there's Ondu Inversion, there's Hour of Revelation, there's Vanquish the Horde, Austere Command, Cleansing Nova, right? And then you have it
lot of
like
Wraths.
there's instant speed Wraths, like Route or whatever, right? Do you
Nobody's
value
running
that
Route.
above this, right? Like there's a lot more utility things that start happening, and then if you're in other colors, you have Merciless Eviction, Blasphemous Act, Toxic Deluge. So unless you're running like a billion Wraths, like you got to make a cut. And it's like in the lowest tier of playable Wraths, I think. But I think people are underselling the token. The token is useful, but I don't know if I want to give up destroying like artifacts and enchantments and stuff like that for it. There's also the new Wrath, the Mortal Kombat Wraths, where like everyone keeps a creature. So you can also play those kind of Wraths as well, right?
And speaking of new Wraths, the other thing that's happening is it seems like we keep getting more and more like archetype-specific Wraths that are not like technically Wraths, but if you're in tokens, it's like a Wrath for you. If you're in Legendary Tribal, it's a Wrath for you, which I think like makes generic Wraths slowly trend down in value just because you can play like a more on theme or like depending on your archetype, you might have a Wrath that's specifically very good in your deck even though other people wouldn't play it.
All right, but played against Phil. He's terrified of it.
Oh, yeah.
Exile it all.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that death
but
triggers don't happen is...
this hurts it hurts the Realmbreaker, Seth. Are we going to play this?
Oh, yeah. On second thought.
Oh, wait, no, it doesn't. Wait, it doesn't hurt Realmbreaker. No, wait, it only exiles creatures. It's fine.
Oh, yeah, we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. It kills my spirited companion, Sun Titan.
Forever,
Loops,
yeah.
but-
This does kind of wreck Richard. Maybe Richard is downplaying
It does
this
wreck-
because he's afraid
it
we're going to
100% wrecks
exile
me,
his
yeah.
spirited companion
Yeah.
and he's out of
Well,
the
he
game.
keeps saying,
Yeah.
he keeps saying how he doesn't ever play farewell. And
Yeah.
it's like,
Exactly,
well,
right? If I'm not
he doesn't
playing
wanna be
like the
played
most powerful
against-
White Wrath because it wrecks my own deck, this is insanely strong against
So
me.
just play it
Right?
against,
Sunfall.
Play it
PSA,
against
play
Richard.
farewell against Richard. He hates it.
If there's a secret rendezvous spirited companion abuser in your pod, you should definitely play Sunfall.
Abuse
But-
secret abuse.
All right, so that concludes kind of our hype list for March of the Machine. What are you guys hyped about? Let us know what cards you want to build around. Let me know if you can break Dance with the Calamity. I'm actually curious.
Yeah.
What other weird things are we missing? And I think this is a pretty exciting set for Commander. I guess all sets are now excited for Commander, but there seems to be a lot of really high-powered cards and a lot of new build-around me's. And then, of course, all the team-ups. All the team-ups will allow you to mash your colors and have fake partner pairings. So the set seems pretty hype. Excited to see where it goes. So let us know in the comments what you want to see, what you're going to build. Maybe link your decks. And then we'll see you all here back next week. See you, everyone.
Battle tier list. Goodbye.